Hi, I'm Mike from Detect Alarms, and today I'm going to show you our very simple wired driveway alarm. Now, although I say it's a wired driveway alarm, this alarm can be used for many things. It can be used in warehouses, shops, anywhere where there's a doorway or a building that needs protecting. It can be used in garages, sheds, absolutely anywhere. We mainly use them for driveways using a pair of dual beam detectors such as these. These are dual beam detectors for outdoor use. They can be positioned up to 100 meters apart. Anything going between these two beams up to 100 meters apart will trigger them and set off the control box. For indoor use, we have a very simple single beam detector. Very small, they can be used across doorways. They will work up to 15 meters apart, and they're very simple, small beam used for indoors such as garages, sheds, workshops, factories, etc. Anywhere where you want two beams to be triggered and to set off the control box. The reason these are bigger, they're a two beam detector, and the reason there's two beams is that both beams have to be broken at the same time for it to trigger the control box. This means that you'll get less false alarms from birds flying by and leaves such and so forth. Blocking a single beam, a bird blocking a single beam will set it off, whereas a dual beam, both beams have to be broken to set it off. Control box is wall mounted. You have the power jack there, which works off 12 volt. You get a 12 volt supply, power adapter and a light to show the box is on, and a couple of cable entries there. Now, there's 6 screws on the back. I've taken most out. I'll just take the one out and I'll show you the insides, the workings. Lift the lid off. There we have the couple of little circuit boards, and here we have the internal buzzer. The buzzer will sound for anywhere between 1 second and 999 seconds, and you set that on this board, so it can go from 1 second to 999. You can also, with the two terminals on the end here, you can also wire another buzzer into another room or an external siren. We do sell a small wired siren such as this. It's a two-tone siren. It's pretty noisy. If that was wired up outside, once those beams are broken, this would sound again between 1 second and 999, whatever you set the control box on. We also do a larger siren with a battery backup. If the power's cut, the battery backup will take over and the siren will keep going. It also has a strobe light. You can fit 12 volt strobe lights to this, which we do as well, or outdoors. Now, it's operated by a key fob. Press once, it turns it on. Press once again, it switches it off. I'll just plug it in and show you. So we plug in the power adapter. Once we're plugged in, you see the small green and red light comes on there. No light on here. If I turn the key fob on, one press, the light comes on to show we're ready, we're activated. And a small display here shows 003, which means it's actually set now to run for 3 seconds if it's activated. You can add more key fobs. If I just turn this off now, there's a small button next to the green light there. If I press that little button there, the green light will flash off. If I now take another key fob, which we haven't programmed in yet, press the button, the green light flashes to show this now has been entered into the memory. If I now press this button on the key fob, it turns the box on. So very simple to add more key fobs. To alter the length of time that the buzzer or siren or flashing light sounds for or flashes for, you have 2 buttons here under the display. If I press the left hand button, you'll now see that display is flashing. I can now alter that display by pressing the right hand button. It's now set for 103 seconds. You can step through, you can go all the way through. If you're pressing the wrong one, by mistake you can just go round, back to 9, one more press and we're back to 0. Then you can move on to the next display or the one after that. I can now set that for 4 seconds. That will keep flashing until I press the left hand button again, and now that's saved on 4 seconds. There's also a decimal point there, that's 0.04, that's 4 seconds. If you press the right hand button again, I can move the decimal point, so it will now run for 0.04 seconds. But we'll press that back. So again, as I say, you can set that for 999 seconds. Now, the dual beams, I'll just show you those as they're the most popular. What you get a transmitter beam and a receiver beam, and these can be wall mounted using the brackets that are supplied. What you get is a wall bracket that you fix to the wall, and the beam then fixes to the actual wall bracket. If you want, you can, with the saddles provided, fix the beams to a post. You get all the brackets and all the screws provided, pack of screws there. So it's wall mounted or post mounted. I'll just show you now how to set these up. On the bottom there is a small screw on each of these. Unscrew it, but don't take the screw right the way out. You could drop it, you could lose it. Once it's loosened off enough, you should be able to, when I have loosened it off enough, lift the top off, and there are the dual beams and the wiring connections on the top. The wires go out the back. This is the transmitter and this is the receiver. Both work off 12 volts from the control box, and what you'll see here is some LEDs on the actual beams. One shows a red light when the alarm's set off, one shows a level, and one shows good, which means it's receiving a good signal from the other beam. What I've done, they're very simple to wire up. If you can wire a 13 amp plug, you can wire these up. They are just so simple, and I'll show you that now. If I just turn off the display for the moment, the control box, and what I've got is a pair of beams which I've already connected some wires to save time. And basically all you do, it's shown on here. There's number 1 is power, positive, number 2 is negative, and then 3 and 5 is a switch. In the control box you have a terminal block, and that's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 1 to 5. Dead simple. You take a wire from number 1 in the control box, if I pop that in there, number 1 terminal, that goes to number 1 on the transmitter, and also goes across to number 1 on the receiver. That's your power to power the beams, your positive. It also goes from number 1, you have a little link wire which goes to number 5. Now we have the negative, which goes to number 2 in the control box. I'll just pop that in there. I'm not bothering to go through the cable gland. As you can see, it's just to save time. Pop that in there. And don't worry about this, it's all 12 volts, you're not going to be electrocuted. As you can see now, we have lights on here because we're powered up. So the negative goes from number 2 in the control box to number 2 on the transmitter beam, and across to number 2 on the receiver beam. So it's really simple, 1 to 1, 2 to 2. The only other thing we do now is take a wire from number 3 only on the receiver beam. number 3 on the receiver beam. This is a signal wire that sends a signal back to the control box, and number 3 wire goes in number 3 terminal. So it's as simple as that, although I say it's simple, you've got to send all the wire off down around the building and whatnot, but the connections are so simple. Now the beams face each other up to 100 meters apart. You can twist them through 180 degrees, so you can mount them on a wall and turn them, or a post to turn them to meet with the other beam, line up with the other beam. You can adjust the up and down axis by that screw there. If you screw it in or screw it out, it moves the beam that way or that way. Once they're lined up, the green light, which is off now, will come on to show you're getting a good signal from the other beam. If you're not getting a good signal, the good green light goes off, good green light comes back on. There is a small viewfinder here. Once you're mounted onto the post, if you look through that tiny little hole on each of these beams, through a mirror you can see the other beam at a distance. And that's a way of lining it up through that little viewfinder on each of these beams. Once you've lined them up through that little viewfinder, it literally is just moving them up and down slightly until you get them lined up. Now if I just put them there facing each other, try and get the green light to light up, which it has, we should now, if you imagine those are 100 meters apart with the covers back on, we are set up to receive a signal. If I switch the box on now, we're set for 4 seconds. If I break that beam now, the buzzer should sound for 4 seconds. Once it's sounded for 4 seconds, it will reset itself. You'll notice that as the buzzer sounds for 4 seconds, the display will count down back to 0 and reset itself. So I'll just show you again. It resets itself. So imagine those are up to 100 meters apart, across a gateway, across a building. Anyone walking between those beams, that's what you'll hear, that buzzer sounding. As I say, from the connections 4 and 5, you can connect a siren. I won't connect that now because that would be deafening. So that can be connected into 4 and 5. Obviously you can extend the lead, that can go round through a little junction box out to the outside of a building. You can run more than one siren. We also sell flashing strobe lights, and again outside you can have a strobe light flashing, a siren sounding, from anywhere between, as I say, 1 second to 999. And I think that's about it. I'll just try it once more. And thank you for viewing.